Okay, let's just pause for a second. Imagine the ground, right under your feet. What if it's not just rock, not just dirt?
Mhm.
What if Earth itself? What if it has some kind of awareness, a global consciousness?
It sounds pretty radical, doesn't it?
Totally. But is Gaia just a myth? Or could it be? Well, more. Like, could the planet have memory, intelligence, maybe even a will?
That's the rabbit hole we're jumping into today.
Exactly.
Yeah.
This is our deep dive,
Yeah.
exploring this idea of a conscious planet. And not just based on vibes, but on some pretty fascinating scientific observations, even if they're a bit speculative.
Yeah, it's a perspective that really shakes things up. It challenges our basic ideas of life, of sentience.
Totally.
The thought that our planet isn't just a physical system, but maybe some kind of unified, responsive being. It just opens up so many mind-bending possibilities, how we see ourselves, our place, everything.
Absolutely. So maybe let's start with the basics. The idea of Earth being like self-regulating, that's not completely new, is it?
Yeah, not at all. You've got James Lovelock and Lynn Margulis back in 1979. They proposed the Gaia Hypothesis.
Right, Gaia.
And their core idea really was that Earth functions a lot like a single living organism.
How so?
Well, think about our atmosphere. It's not just a random mix of gases, right?
Uh-huh.
It's actively shaped, maintained by biological processes. Life makes the atmosphere habitable,
Okay.
and the oceans, too. They keep this really delicate chemical balance that supports, all the life in them, and even the planet's temperature overall. Over huge timescales, geological time, it stayed in a pretty narrow range, even when the sun's output changed quite a bit.
So it's not just random systems bumping into each other.
Exactly. The Gaia hypothesis points to this deep interconnectedness. All these different parts, air, water, land, life, working together, creating and maintaining the conditions for life.
A dynamic, self-regulating Earth.
Precisely. Now, the sources we're digging into today, they take that idea, that really interesting concept, and they push it. They ask, what if Earth doesn't just, keep things stable? What if it also responds, learns, maybe, over time?
Ah, okay. So not just passive regulation, but active response.
That's where it starts to edge towards something more active, aware even. Could this whole intricate web of life be more than just biological? Could it have some kind of neurological aspect?
Wow, okay. That's a big leap, though. From self-regulation to consciousness.
Huge leap, yeah.
To even entertain that, you'd need some way for information to, travel, to be processed.
On a global scale, right.
And that leads us to some really intriguing, though, hypothetical research described from around 2037.
Okay.
Our sources mention the European Bio Network. They apparently used a global fungal mapping AI to study forests across whole continents.
Fungal networks, you mean like the mycorrhizal networks, the underground
Also,
stuff?
exactly that. These incredibly complex systems, fungi linking up with plant roots.
We know they help trees communicate, right?
Yeah.
Share resources, like a forest internet. Right. But this 2037 research, the way it's described, it suggests something much more complex. These networks seem to be sending signals over huge distances. In a way, the researchers compared to, neural pathways, nerves in an animal.
Whoa. The forest floor as a giant nervous system.
Something like that. And
Ooh.
here's where it gets really weird, according to the sources.
Uh-oh.
These signals, they seem to synchronize with solar activity.
With the sun.
Oh.
Not just, individual plants reacting to light.
No, something broader, a planet-scale sync-up.
Okay, that is weird.
And it gets weirder. They also reported these signals responding to seismic events, earthquakes, before the quakes happen.
Wait, before, predicting them?
Or sensing them coming somehow. It's not clear how, but that's what was apparently observed.
Okay, mind blown.
And on top of that, the researchers started seeing patterns in these signals. Patterns they interpreted as being like emotions.
Emotions.
You
In the fungus network.
Sort of. Things like stress, alertness, calm, being expressed across these huge biological networks.
So, okay, the massive question then is this just incredibly complex biochemistry, super interconnected biology doing its thing?
Or could it be something more? Could this global communication, these anticipatory responses, these emotion-like patterns, could they point to some basic form of planetary awareness? Earth kind of sensing itself.
Right?
Reacting.
That's a core mystery, isn't it? Where does biology end
Yeah.
and something else begin?
And the narrative in these sources then takes us to Project Symphony.
Okay, Symphony sounds big.
Oh, yeah. Launched in 2091, UN-backed, massive research initiative. And its goal, Well, it was incredibly ambitious.
What were they trying to do?
Basically map every signal they could detect across the whole planet.
Every signal. Like
Everything. The fungal network activity, obviously, but also pulses from oceanic plankton, tiny fluctuations in the Earth's magnetic field, bioelectric discharges, in forests, even in coral reefs.
wow, just capturing the planet's entire conversation with itself.
Trying to get a completely holistic picture, of all the interconnected
Okay,
activity.
did they find anything?
According to the sources, when they layered all this data, analyzed it together,
Yes.
a pattern emerged.
What kind of pattern?
A resonance, planet-wide. Across all these different systems, the fungi, the plankton, the magnetic field.
They were all humming together.
In a way, it was described as being like a brainwave, or maybe a planetary EEG, an electroencephalogram, suggesting this coordinated, synchronous activity happening across the whole globe.
A planetary heartbeat almost, or a brainwave.
Something like that. And then, the sources claim, Earth started communicating.
Yeah.
Through what they interpreted as these emotion-like pulses.
Detected by.
Satellites, apparently. A sophisticated network picking up these large-scale fluctuations. It wasn't words, not language as we think of it.
More like feelings, planetary moods.
That seemed to be the interpretation, these large-scale signals carrying a certain state or feeling.
And did it ever get more specific?
Well, then came what the narrative presents as the pivotal moment. The first really clear message, if you want to call it that.
Which was?
You are inside me. Stop burning.
Wow. Wow. Stop burning.
Yeah. Pretty direct, especially when you think about, climate change, fossil fuels, the damage we know we're doing.
So if we follow this narrative, things like climate change, deforestation, poisoning the oceans, it's not just environmental damage anymore, is it?
No. Suddenly, it's potentially harming a conscious being, inflicting damage on something aware.
That completely reframes, everything. Our entire relationship with Earth.
Absolutely. It shifts from just managing resources or cleaning up messes to ethics, the morality of our actions towards a potentially sentient planet.
And according to this story, Earth started to react, to defend itself.
That's how it's presented, yes. We see these examples, like powerful storms forming way faster, more precisely than usual.
Okay.
Or symmetrical volcanic eruptions happening across totally different tectonic plates, almost coordinated.
That seems unlikely to be coincidence.
And subtle shifts in tides, just enough to make unsustainable harbors, the really damaging ones, unusable.
Huh. So it's like the planet was pushing back.
Yeah.
Gently at first, maybe? Or maybe not so gently. The interpretation some scientists in this scenario offered is, it's pretty stark.
What did they think?
That Gaia was entering a kind of neurological defense mode?
Neurological.
Or maybe displaying a planetary immune response, like the planet system's reacting to a threat?
So natural disasters might not be random. They could be responses, reactions to stress.
That's the perspective it offers, which leads to that really profound question.
Yeah.
What if climate change isn't just a consequence of what we do? What if it's also a symptom of Earth waking up, reacting?
Yeah, completely turns things inside out, doesn't it? Our role, the nature of the problem.
It forces a huge reconsideration, which naturally brings up big questions about our responsibility, our future.
So what happened next in this narrative with Project Symphine Y and this revelation?
Well, the sources say that by 2135, the project was reclassified, which hints at a major shift, right? At the government level, the scientific community, a fundamental change in understanding our relationship with Earth.
How did things change? We start seeing policies geared towards coexistence, a recognition that we have to live with Earth's systems in balance, not just keep exploiting them.
Makes sense if you believe the planet is aware.
Right. And you see things like eco-cities popping up, but specifically in areas where Gaia's signal resonance, that planetary EEG, was calm.
Like areas the planet approved of.
That seems to be the idea. A kind of planetary consent or alignment. Living where the planet is comfortable with us living.
And what about our ambitions? Like going to Mars, changing other planets?
The narrative suggests that the whole idea of terraforming Earth, forcing it to fit our needs, was largely abandoned.
Why?
The focus shifted. Instead of trying to reshape the planet, humanity started trying, listen to it.
From dominance to understanding.
Exactly. A huge shift in attitude.
And what did that look like, practically? Listening to the Earth.
The examples given are pretty fascinating. Temples being built in ancient fungal forests, treating them as sacred, conscious places, developing sophisticated devices to try and decode those emotional pulses coming from coral reefs.
No.
It points to this future where science and maybe spirituality start to blend, trying to connect with Earth on a much deeper, more intuitive level.
Yeah, the lines get blurry when you're talking about planetary consciousness.
For sure. And that final thought from that part of the narrative, it really hits hard.
Remind me.
We once thought we were walking on a rock. Now we know we are thoughts within a greater mind.
Oof, yeah, that's a total paradigm shift. Thinking of ourselves not just on Earth, but of Earth, part of its mind.
So as everyone's listening, just think about that for a moment. Could Earth actually have some form of consciousness?
And are we? Are we like neurons?
Yeah.
In that larger mind?
And those natural disasters throughout history, were they just geology, meteorology, or could they have been messages, signals?
If Earth really is alive, aware in this way,
Yeah.
what does that mean for us? What's our responsibility?
Yeah, these are huge questions. They really challenge our basic assumptions about, well, everything. Life, consciousness, our place.
It's a lot to chew on. And as the sources we looked at suggest, digging into the work of people like Lovelock or Merlin Sheldrake on fungi, Suzanne Simard on tree networks.
Right. Their work explores this incredible interconnectedness of life, the potential for intelligence, for communication, on scales we barely understand, even if it's very different from our own human consciousness.
It definitely opens your mind to possibilities.
Ultimately, this whole deep dive, this idea of a conscious Earth, it really asks us to reconsider how we relate to the planet.
Yeah, it's not just where we live.
It might be something much more profound, something that maybe lives through us, through all life.
A powerful thought. So until our next deep dive, maybe just try to stay grounded, literally.
Yeah. Listen a bit more closely to the world around you.
And, just entertain the possibility, the mind beneath our feet.